So I'm John Bradford. I run High Tech Bristol and Bath, and we've organised today on behalf of and with the high tech and professional and financial services clusters around Bristol and Bath. The expo area is in Waterside 3, so do please go in there, enjoy the coffee and the food, wander around our sponsors, Womble, Bond Dickinson and Hargreaves Lansdowne, and our community partners, share your stories with them, find out what they do and how you can work together in the future. I've mentioned our partners. One of the questions that's come back as we launched this event was why TecFiin? And I think it's just worth reflecting slightly that a lot of companies, a lot of cities are promoting themselves as centres of fintech. And when we had this conversation about 18 months ago now, we first started this conversation with Adrian and Nick Hemley and others from the Special Interest Group, we kind of started to identify what was special about Bristol. And we don't have the classic fintech cluster that you get in Shoreditch. But actually what we have here is a lot more interesting, I think. We have a number of companies with over 30 years of experience in silicon, in deep technology, in machine learning, in silicon architecture, high-speed networking, cloud computing. We also have advanced engineering, so we're very used to complicated systems and integration, which is unique. And we've got a very strong financial and professional services sector. And bringing those two together, the key differentiator for us was that technology offer. And that spans across a number of disciplines. So it's applicable in financial services. It's also applicable in smart cities, where Bristol was just voted the UK's #1 smart city. It's applicable in cloud computing, and we've got very strong cloud and high-performance cloud computing clusters here in Bristol. So for us, TecFiin, putting it on its head, seemed like the right way of describing what we do. And the ARCA today will take you from best-in-class deployment currently, where regulation is going and how regulation is influencing technology and technology innovation is steering some of the regulatory changes that are coming forward. We've then got a session on ethical banking. One of the big factors within the West of England is social equality and social inclusion. And so we wanted to see how we can use all these funky new technologies to open up the financial services space to those that perhaps don't have some of the resources that the better off do, or are in some other ways disadvantaged, perhaps as recent refugees or victims of modern slavery. They don't have an identity, so they can't prove who they are. So can we use technology in new and interesting ways to make those products available to them? And then obviously we're going to finish with the Blue Skies panel of what's all the cool and funky tech that we really want to get excited about, but that will also help drive those changes that we foresee. So we've got a fantastic day planned. We're going to start with Wincie's opening keynote. So Wincie looks after the digital propositions team at RBS. She's got amazing experience within both running her own businesses, but also working and running large teams in multinationals. She grew up in New York City, but spent the last 8 years up in London Village. And is particularly passionate about making innovation relevant for customers. So our opening keynote is Wincie Wong from RBS. And Wincie twisted her ankle, so please bear with her. Don't chase her down the corridors.
I know, exactly. Can everyone hear me? I didn't realize I wasn't going to be allowed free roaming today. I feel like a little bit of me dies every time I stand behind a podium. So I unfortunately did twist my ankle. It is not an 80s throwback to leg warmers. I might get people to sign it later if I can find a hot pink Sharpie. But I just want to kick off a little bit by talking about myself a little bit. When you put me on stage, that's what I like to do. And I grew up in New York, if you couldn't tell from the accent, as John has already said, and born, bred from Manhattan, and probably until I met this Frenchman in a bar, and then I ended up here. So go figure. And I've been here probably almost 9 years now. So I've been here. And let me tell you, American English and British English actually isn't the same. I didn't realize all that. So I had to learn, definitely. The flower there, by the way, if you couldn't tell, I love emojis. And once I get my hands on that iPhone X, then you might start seeing presentations with animojis and apparently an emoji karaoke from me. So the flower is because I studied as an accountant in uni, and I will be honest, I didn't do the best at my studies. As a result, I was like, I need a side hustle. I need something else. And that's when I decided to go to Parsons School of Design in New York and get certified as a floral designer, where I decided to run my own floral design business, where I used to do weddings, events, bar mitzvahs, all of that. Absolutely loved it. Now, the third emoji is because luckily not doing so hot in my studies did not mean I couldn't apply it, which is good. And I actually ended up being a very good accountant. I used to run audits at Deloitte in New York for investment management, hedge funds, private equity funds, and the like. And when I first came to the UK working at RBS, I did start out as FD for a lot of our divisions in corporate. And the last emoji is my favorite. I am a bit of a geek. As you can tell from my stylish fashion sense, it is there. I absolutely love all things digital. I love gadgets. So combine my love of shopping with the love of gadgets, and you can imagine my Amazon bill. So I have bought all kinds of gadgets under the sun. I think my most recent was an air fryer, which means I can fry chips in 12 minutes. I probably shouldn't be eating them every meal of every day, but it's really good. So I highly suggest that if any of you are into a bit of culinary gadgetry. And the reason I talk about all these things is not just to talk about myself, although I have, but also to talk about how important it is in life to adapt and change to your environment, to constantly be open to pivoting, to be able to meet how the environment changes around you. So the constant is change. And with that, I will share a quick video. So I very quickly wanted to talk about this quote from Hugh McCall Jr., who's the CEO of what became Bank of America, which became the biggest bank in America. And this is back from 1995. And he did, ooh, I keep forgetting there's a mic I need to talk to. As every school child knows, the dinosaur didn't survive the Ice Age. It's not that he lacked the capacity to evolve, he just didn't have the time. So unlike the dinosaur, bankers can see the changes ahead. We have a choice in the matter. The dinosaur never did. So to kick off today, I wanted to talk a little bit about the changing landscape around us and how we as a bank, as RBS, as NatWest actually are trying to evolve to meet the change in the environment. So to start off, let's talk about open banking. So love a bit of open banking here, and I was assured that I'm in a room full of grown-ups who are probably intimately aware, but just wanted to take it back a little bit to its basics. Talk about, from my perspective, where we see open banking. And I would say customers' expectations have changed quite a lot. People are building experiences off other experiences and so on. How many people in the room know what an API is? Whew, I love this room. I usually only get one or two hands in other places. So then you guys already know that API stands for Application Programming Interfaces. It's a bit of a way for language, for computers to talk to each other and to share information. So an experience like this, Map My Run, is very typical, where it takes an API from Facebook in order to authenticate the user. It takes an API from Google Maps to map my run. And it takes an API from Fitbit to give you information about your health stats. And taking those together, building a completely new experience, which is Map My Run. Now, what we've been asked to do as a bank, all of a sudden, is to start creating APIs, something we haven't had to do previously, and expose it to external third parties to use. Now, very basic, I think, in terms of open banking. It's being driven by the Competitive Markets Authority on the UK side of it, and then the Payment Services Directive 2 on the right-hand side, that's the EU, all asking us to really start creating APIs to expose things like customer account information and balance, authentication, security, initiating payments, transaction history. These are things that previously we as a bank were able to maintain, control, and own. So we used to actually be able to say, well, this is how you as a customer get to see the information. Whereas now we've been asked to create APIs to open that up. Now, why have they asked us to do this, and comply with this? And really, they want to create better customer experiences. First, I guess what we know about our customers is that they don't just bank at one bank, or we have this saying internally, where our customers don't really divorce us as a bank. They go and have affairs with other banks. That's what they like to do. They'll have a credit card with Santander, or a mortgage with Barclays, or something else with Lloyds. And the regulators have come onto this. So they know that actually, in order to help our customers manage their finances better, they want to be able to see that all in one place. So part of the way to enable that is to force us to create these APIs so they can start seeing that. Also, as part of it, to switch bank accounts easily. This is something that the CMA have asked for quite some time. And this is, customers are really comfortable with their banks. I think, was it B Bank that said that, more of their customers leave them from dying than any other way. And actually, they want people to be able to see that if they are getting a better interest rate at, Bank B instead of Bank A, that they can easily move their accounts. And to compare the products and prices and to pay for things faster, because actually not everyone wants to remember their long PAN number on their debit cards or credit cards, and or remember all their logins and passwords. So to help them facilitate moving the money around the way they want to do. And what's important to understand is that this isn't new. So it's not that, oh, poor me, it's just banking. It's actually happened to quite a lot of industries already. So one of the industries where it's been impacted quite a lot is travel. So how many people in the audience have actually booked travel in a bricks and mortar shop in the last year? There we go, exactly. So I mean, once the APIs came out from all the flight prices, for example, you'd go to somewhere like Expedia or Skyscanner or Google even nowadays to take a look at flight prices to find actually what's the airport that's closest to my home that has the flight and the time that I want and has the the benefits that I would like, and therefore I want to book it on my terms. So it gives the customer the choice. And that is exactly what the CMA would like us to do, but with banking. And we know that there are lots of competitors out there who will, with these new APIs, start to take our customer attention away from us. So you have your aggregators, so it'll be PFM solutions like Clio, Yolt, or even some of the other banks like Starling, for example. Some of the supercharged comparison sites for product information, and on the small business end, accountancy packages, because they'd love for those APIs to be live so that customers can, who are small businesses, can manage all their finances from within their accounting software. So how do we avoid becoming extinct, the dinosaurs' fate? So at the bank, I'd like to think they have me. So I run what we call our digital propositions team, and we are very much out there looking. It's a very small team within the bank, and we have a four-step process. We are very much about looking at what are the technology trends going on outside, as well as what are the customer trends, what are the macroeconomic trends that are going on, and marrying it with some of our business strategies to come up with new digitally led customer propositions to bring to market. And that's part of identification stage, so looking in the market, seeing what are the things that are interesting, what are the business problems we want to solve, then developing. So actually developing the proposition, doing customer research, really understanding what the customer pain points are. Trialing is really important because actually knowing that customers will not always tell you the truth in focus groups, or they'll tell you something in the moment. It's not actually how they'll live with it. So we like to spend time trialing it with small volumes of customers before we launch it to scale, which is the big one, which is getting it a big bank to move quickly to actually, when a proposition trials really well, that customers to be able to scale it. So today, I'll just take you through two of the propositions that my team has developed over the years that have launched to market. So the first one is Cora, help and support for an always-on world. We were the first bank to offer artificially intelligent chatbot to answer customer queries on our webpage. This is based on a trend we saw in artificial intelligence a couple of years ago. We know that we ourselves are not experts at artificial intelligence, so we partnered with IBM using their Watson technology in order to deliver this. Now, what's really great is how we went about it and how we really learned. So we formed really small teams working with IBM side by side to actually develop this together. What we saw is that our customers were asking the same questions over and over on our website from our web chat to our web chat agents. And if you think about it, almost our web chat was our POC for the longest time. Thousands and thousands of web chats that we get a day. And what we knew is that there were these top 20 questions that they were constantly asking. So actually, rather than try to answer and build the perfectest robot, if that's even a word, the best robot ever to answer questions, we actually just zeroed in on these top 20 questions. So how do we answer them? How do we answer them consistently and quickly so that actually our customers don't have to sit there and wait forever for a web chat agent to come on board? So if you notice, what we ended up training is actually most of the questions we got were around transactions and expenditure and payments. So a lot of actually moving money and just doing things. So those were the initial intents. We've trained it with a lot more since, but that's what we actually started with. So we've learned a ton about customers and how they like to interact. So the first is to clarify early and often. So customers will say things like, lost my card. And actually, they don't say, well, is it your debit card, your credit card, your savings card? Which card is it? So we have to constantly clarify. And then they said, yes, it's my debit card. Then you have to say, well, actually, how do you have online banking? So constantly asking them questions. British people turns out, are really polite, even to chatbots. It's really nice. I don't know if this would fly in America. I don't know what would happen, but or in New York for that matter. But they'll say things like, I want to move house, but really what they want to say is, I want to change my address. We also see quite a lot of pleasantries like, hello, how are you doing? And you know, all these kinds of things. They've been really quite nice. But they also like to ramble quite a lot. So this is a real chat that we got. So it says, I had to re-register for online banking yesterday. As I entered the incorrect password, now I managed to register. I've gone to make a payment. It said I need a card reader, which I had on the past, and also the card's not locked, and I've been trying to, and I live in South Africa, and so on and so on. And really what this person meant is, can I make an international payment? That's what they meant. And it is constantly getting things like this, where we're actually learning and figuring out how to find the real question. And going live and iterating quickly, that's what was really important. So we could have spent years and years in a big lab, you know, in a big fancy office, trying to really get this right, you know, 100%, training on 100 intents, you know. But we said, look, let's just get these 20 questions and let's just throw it out there. Let's see what happens. So we first expose this on a really small part of our RBS website. We have fewer foot traffic, or web traffic that goes to our RBS website, and on our help and support page, where we knew that that's where our customers were asking these questions. So we started there. We learned a lot. And every night there's a debrief, we look at the scripts, or there's a team that looks at the scripts, and then we redeploy, so constantly. And we have this whole process for doing it now. So we went there, and then we went wider and wider, and now it's across all our web pages. And we're still learning. So these are some stats from the first few months that we launched. We were containing 45% of conversations. So that means 45% of the customers didn't feel like they needed to be handed off to a live agent. We were able to answer their questions. This is against what we originally expected, a containment of 30%. So that went really well. And then turns out, out of the remaining where we did have to hand to a live agent, 60% of those were for the right reason. So it was to do something a lot more complex that our bot would never be able to answer. And in terms of volume, we've seen the volumes. That's an old number. It's gone up quite dramatically since then. One thing I will say is every time we expose it to a new interface or a new web page, it does go down. It drops down, and then we learn, and we build it back up, and then we go again. And that's something that was really important for us. Then the next proposition I want to talk about is Compass, which is our small business accounting for a digital age. So this is our proposition for small businesses. There are about 5 million small businesses in the UK, of which we bank about 1 million of them. We're the largest bank for small businesses. 94% of the SME market is sole trader or single-owned entities, so one-man bands. And what we knew is that I found through research that only about half of our customers used any kind of accounting software, if at all. And when I asked them, well, how do you manage your finances then? They tended to say, well, I have this bag or a box or an envelope full of receipts that I ship to my account at the end of the year, and they just sort it for me. And we said, well, that's not good enough. We can do a lot more as a bank. And this is where we collaborate with Free Agent, which is an Edinburgh-based fintech company, to offer small business accounting software, simplified accounting software, as part of banking with us. So I'm going to take you through a demo now of what the experience looks like. So you log in, you'll notice that it's co-branded, NatWest and Free Agent. It brings up the cash flows. It uses incoming and outgoing, so really good customer-friendly language. When you scroll to the bottom, you see that it's co-branded again, NatWest and Free Agent. The tax timeline's critical because it tells a customer what are the big tax bills that are due that they need to take. When you go into your account, this is what was really cool. We did an integration with Free Agent so that your bank account transactions show up every night. And this is part of the sign-up process, the digital sign-up process, where you click through, and as part of it, any of the transactions you do show up. You explain the transaction instead of reconciling it, and then what's really important is HMRC has would like to, I would say, implement the quarterly digital tax return for small businesses, and this was our way of helping our customers get ready for that. So you can file your taxes, whether it's the VAT or straight from within the software, and that was our way of starting to help our customers be better at their financial management.
Hi, my name is James Kennedy, and I run Kennedy City Bicycles. Free agent gives me a lot of confidence when running my own business because it takes care of a lot of the things I don't necessarily have a background in. Does free agent make me a better business person? I think it probably does. It makes me more confident that I've got everything covered, and it makes me a bit more mature about the way I take care of my finances. One of the best things about having a small business is being able to take care of everything yourself and to learn. And free agent helps you do that while making sure that you're not going to make mistakes at the same time.
So one of the customers that we trialed this with last year, he's the guy in the upper right. He's a web designer from Glasgow, and I think by night he's also a band member, apparently quite popular. And what he said, which really resonated, I think, with me, is that free agent has opened my eyes, made me realize that the accountant wasn't the silver bullet. I didn't realize the amount of things I did wrong. It was by offering him that simplified software that he realized, actually, it's not up to just your accountant that you ship everything off to at the end of the year to sort out the financial well-being of your business. You have to take ownership of it too. And actually, it gave him a lot more transparency about what goes into it. And that was really important because we wanted to help and coach our customers to be able to run better businesses. Because God knows they got into the business most of the time for their passion or to be their own boss. Certainly not to do admin. And so this was just a bit of a flavor. Hopefully you enjoyed that about some of the things that me and the team are doing for the bank to try to help it continue to evolve and survive in this new era of open banking. So with that, are there any questions? Ooh, there are mics. Oh, there's a question right there.
Hi, Tom Payne from Hargreaves Lansdowne. With the chatbot
Yes.
capability, do you tell people that they're talking to a robot?
Yes, absolutely.
And then do you invite them to talk to an agent, or does that kind of happen automatically?
So what normally happens is the chatbot will come up automatically. It'll say that you're talking to artificially intelligent assistant. That was really important. And all the research we did, customers didn't like being tricked, so to speak, into thinking they were talking to a live person. So we tried to we've been using lots of different language as well to try to make that clear. So you usually get the chatbot up front. Then if it can't answer your question, then it seamlessly hands over in the same window to a live web chat agent. And that live agent is able to see the history of what you've been chatting.
Hello. I'm interested how lots of these digital innovations often rely on organisational or cultural changes to enable them. To what extent are you sort of siphoned off and able to do this autonomously, and to what extent are you having to integrate and therefore change the systems and processes that already exist within the big machine that is RBS?
That's a really good question. I would say that cultural change is tremendously important in order to make any of this survive. I think there is I'll be honest with you, there's a mix of both. So in the chatbot situation, we built that on the side with IBM and some of our innovation engineers, so some of our really kick-ass engineers. And we trialed it internally first with small sets of customers, proved that it worked, and then brought it up. What I'm really excited to say is that the drive for innovation comes from the very top. So the CEO of the bank, Ross McEwen, is very much into it. Our exco for our personal and business banking, that exco, I see them probably once a month at least, and they are very much about driving through this change and providing the support. Now, there will always be an element of getting it to scale, and how do we actually coral around and create the capacity in our BAU teams to be able to support and develop these further. And that is something that takes longer, but what is great is that it's happening rather than just constantly. I think someone once called it someone told me, I probably shouldn't even say this out loud, but someone told me the corporate immune system sometimes kicks things out. But I'm happy to say, luckily for me, that we've kept going with these.
Hi, it's John Hickman from Flexis. Are you doing anything in detecting vulnerability in those web chats? The FCA are very keen on picking up signs of vulnerability of vulnerable customers. I just wondered if you were picking anything up during those chats.
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. It is something that we're aware of and that we do see. And when we do see it, I mean, it depends on what kind of vulnerability it is. Yes. But when most of the time, it'll get handed off to a live agent, and we will handle it with the care that we offer all our customers.
And is that self-declared vulnerability then during the chat, or are you automatically picking something up?
There are so it depends on how it's worded. I'll be honest. It's as good as the technology is. Yeah. And the technology can detect sentiment quite often. So, for example, if you say I would like a loan versus I need a loan, the answer for the chatbot changes, because if you say I need a loan, it demonstrates that you're probably in financial difficulty, and we start to offer a different string of text to help you with managing finances.
Okay, thanks.
Be a bit patient, going from one end to the other.
Thanks.
I'm just trying not to fall off the stage. So.
Yes, Dave from Money Hub Enterprise. So I'm just wondering, are you scared about the bank becoming, what they call dumb pipes, in the sense that it's providing kind of all this underlying banking infrastructure? But if you look at something like Free Agent, I wonder if many of your small business customers now only experience the bank through Free Agent. Why would they need to log into your other online banking portal? And okay, they're your partner, but someone could sign up with Free Agent directly, and maybe a Free Agent maybe then partnered with another firm who is offering small business loans, and another firm who is offering legal services. Do you see a place where there's a danger of the bank just becoming the provider of the infrastructure and not having any relationship with the end customer?
No, absolutely. I mean, I think that's a threat that all the banks see. I think what I've seen more is that opportunity. It kind of almost helps with the culture point that you were bringing up. There is a need for us to do things that help our customers. Just doing the right things. And I think where people will win, regardless of whether you're an accounting software or a PFM or something out there, is the company that comes up with the best customer experience. And if we can provide the slickest experience to let customers do what they want to do, then I think we can help retain that customer relationship. And absolutely, you're 100% right. Our Free Agent customers, our customers can sign up for Free Agent directly if they would like to as well. Just that if they do it with us, then they get a more integrated experience versus if they were to sign up separately. Plus, they would have to pay 20 to 30 quid for that, whereas it's free if they do it with us. Oh, yeah.
We've got two mics now.
Oh.
Hi there, Wincie. I'm Mike from HSBC. I was wondering, I can see the adoption rates for sort of personal customers and smaller businesses for the type of technologies you're showing there, really, really strong, makes a lot of sense. Mm-hmm. It's like a step change for them. I deal with sort of like mid-market and larger size corporates. What do you see the challenges there being, and what type of technologies do you think will be adopted? Because you're dealing with a more, kind of institutional immunity from your customers who are a bit bigger.
So probably the first thing I should say is I look after digital propositions for just our personal and small business customers. So I probably, but I have a lot of experience with the corporate and more institutional customers as well. And from my experience, so please don't take me as rote, because those guys can probably answer much more articulately than myself in terms of that. I think the biggest challenge we find is that the larger a company grows, the more embedded their systems are. They're kind of like us as a bank. We have a lot of this, what we call the Christmas lights, tangled wires of IT systems. And kind of a lot of the small businesses, a lot of the corporates kind of have a similar thing. So what they're crying out for are things that reduce friction in their processes rather than complete wholesale change. They love our RMs, for example. They don't necessarily want us to get rid of them, but actually, so we have to think very hard about, well, how do we provide you better services digitally than you would necessarily, and actually save your interactions with the RM for those really complicated discussions. Any more? There's one in the middle in the back.
There you go. He's going to get there first.
Ooh, there's lots of questions. It's exciting.
Hi, Wincie. I'm Garrick Monday from Womble Bond Dickinson. How do you manage collaboration? You touched at two ends of the spectrum. You've got Watson, IBM, and then you've got Free Agent in Edinburgh.
Yes.
How do companies get involved with RBS and work in that way?
Yeah, actually, me and Kevin McCallum, over the chief, I think, client officer at Free Agent, we do a little bit of a double act about our love story, I like to call it, when fintech meets bank, I call it. So the collaboration was through every step of the way. I think one of the things that we were very conscious of is that a much smaller company like Free Agent could easily be crushed by some of our governance procedures and and pen testing and InfoSec and all those wonderful things. And what we did is we tried to shield them away from that as much as possible. On the flip side, they had this ethos where they could never be the problem. They were always the solution. So meaning that every time we put a problem to them, they knew that we would have moved heaven and earth to get to that stage. Therefore, they were very much willing to be there and be ready and put the resources they needed to help us. And in return, we helped them. One of the things that, for example, that I think was really useful is when we did do our pen test review of Free Agent, they actually learned from that review on how to make their backends better. So there is a lot of learning that I think both sides did in that collaboration process. I think what was really important is that we dedicated the time to sit with them. So I was in the meeting with them, down to deciding what the email to the customers would look like, writing that script together side by side. And that was what was really important, that we showed that, it wasn't just that, we said we wanted to collaborate and then didn't actually put in the hard graft that needs to be done in order to make it work. And if anyone here wants to work with us, we do have a scouting team that you can speak to.
Thanks very much, Wincie. Samir from Innovate Finance. It was just a quick question on sort of incentives on the demand side, so from consumers. So as much as there needs to be changes culturally within an organization, to what extent do you think there also needs to be changes in terms of some of the behavioral change that needs to happen with consumers? So for the longest time, we've been told not to share data with third parties, to keep your transactional data under lock and key. And obviously under sort of PSD2 and the CMA 9, that transactional data will be open to third parties now as well. So to what extent do you think consumers will have to change their own way that they manage data? And also, do you see demographic differences between, say, slightly older customers and those who are perhaps digitally native? Do you think that there's the potential for a digital divide that could be exacerbated?
So probably a few things to touch on there. Quite a lot of questions. In terms of customers understanding what open banking is, sharing their data, I would say that, the knowledge level is very low to the average consumer. We have enough trouble getting them to use our mobile app. They think that someone stealing their phone will get all their banking data, and they don't even want to do that. So I think we already have an adoption issue. So whether or not people choose to take this on, I think, is very personal. I see that customers, both older and younger, no matter the age, have more awareness of their data and how it's being used. And some of them like to be very private, and some of them just expose it for everywhere. What I will say, however, is that the communication with the customer as a result of open banking, that is still being worked on, and it is a very difficult thing to nail in the right way. Because you're absolutely right. We have spent all these years saying, don't trust anyone, never give away your password. Now all of a sudden we're saying, it's okay in these specific set of circumstances where you can still see your clunky online banking screen, where you put your credentials into. So in terms of educating the customers, I think as the regulation changes and updates, I think it's when it becomes less clunky. I think at the outset in January, probably a lot of the new things that are coming out aren't necessarily making it all that much easier for customers. I mean, they still have to enter all these passwords, they have to renew them constantly. I think as that changes and as it becomes the norm, as it starts becoming something that everyone sees in every app, then they'll get more used to it, and then they might open up a bit more. That's my view. And it might be a year, it might be 2 years, not sure. Any more?
Hi, my name is Akul. I'm from UE. And my question was, with all these one-on-one services that's there, like, how can you assure your customers, there won't be a risk at, cyber threats or digital threats that might, come to them?
So, are you talking about the ones that we've developed, or the external ones?
External ones.
Okay. So, because the things that we develop have been through quite a lot of rigor. As you know, us as a big bank, we're masters of compliance, and we do. I mean, there are lots of checklists for a reason, but as a result, it's very robust. It's really secure. It's really safe, and that's why customers place so much trust in us as a bank, because we keep it safe and secure. And in terms of cybersecurity and threats, that is exactly touching on the other question, what we're scared of. We're definitely afraid. And cybersecurity is the biggest threat. It's something that we see not just in our industry, but in all industries. So people are going and putting their passwords into other retail sites and all kinds, buying things off Facebook, and not always knowing or understanding whether or not the back ends are secure. So I think there is a tremendous opportunity, probably for the fraudsters in the room, to be capitalizing on it. And they work really hard. I can tell you that, knowing from the front line. But it's an absolute concern, and it's something we're looking at developing.
I have a quick question then.
Yeah. Oh.
Sorry, taking advantage of holding the mic.
No, of course.
So where do you see banking in 5 years' time?
Ooh, I don't even know where I see myself. So I don't even know if I'll still be in this country. I think I am. But banking in 5 years' time, I think, will look very different. I can't, I'll be honest with you, I don't feel like I personally can predict that much beyond 2 years, because the pace of change has been so quick. And I think Moore's law, where it's going quicker. And I wouldn't say that things are new, but it is very exciting. I mean, if you think about what's happening in artificial intelligence, where it's been around for 60 years or so, but it's just that with the more recent years where cloud, and quantum computing has come in, where you have the ability to crunch all these masses of data, and all that investment that VCs have been pouring, and Google and all the other big tech firms pouring into machine learning have made its advances. And I don't know if 5 years from now we'll have Skynet or not. I mean, we might. I think cryptocurrencies will start becoming, it already is the norm. I think there's, and therefore, I think people are expecting things to be faster, slicker. I think things that are a bit more friction now, we would expect to completely disappear probably in 5 years' time, or things that, like bringing out the card reader for those of you who bank with us. All of those things will disappear. You authenticate yourself in a much more natural way, is the way I see it. I think the core of the service of banking in terms of facilitating, storing your the record, I would say, of your finances, helping you manage that, I think all of that will remain in the background. How you see or interact with it, I think, is going to be very different.
Last question.
Last question.
Hi, Wincie. So coming back to your comment about the Christmas lights of processes within, probably also within incumbents, such as NatWest and RBS, contrast that with, say, starting a bank from a blank piece of paper, such as the Starlings and others, including, let's say, Virgin Money and going live with 10x Future Technologies, 10x Banking, Anthony Jenkins's outfit from next year. Who's the dinosaur? Do you think that those starting from that blank piece of paper may still be a dinosaur? And how does RBS or NatWest fit within that with its Christmas?
I think everyone has a capability to become a dinosaur. I think it's just everyone. I think what's new today might not be new tomorrow. And I would say that culture is really important in terms of helping fix that, because as much as we have these Christmas lights and all these other things going on, if I drill through the layers of the bank and I get down to the dev, like most devs will say, of course you can do it. You can do anything. You can code anything. You can do anything. And so what it is though, it's all that regulation and compliance that we have to comply with to keep our customers safe and secure that is probably holding it back more than anything. So yes, I think neobank might be one of the new digital banks. Could very well be, the bright and shiny, what's a quick dinosaur? A lizard or a velociraptor? I don't know. We're getting to dinosaurs now, but it might very well grow and mature, and as it gets more customers, it will start to have to answer the same questions we've had to answer over the many years and figure out ways. And actually, for any company, when they grow, it's very hard to continue maintaining that culture, to set that from the outset and keep that going. So I'm hoping with all the things that we're doing that this dinosaur will survive. I think there was, what was it, Chris Skinner or something? Someone had a quote where they said, there was a kid whose father was a fintech owner, and they said, oh yeah, my father likes to play with dinosaurs too. So there's a lot of that. And I think what we might see going forward is, we have some of the examples of collaboration there. I think what will happen is that, there will be more collaborations and partners, because I think we as a bank, we are open and honest enough to say that we're not experts at absolutely everything. So if there is someone else who's out there who is, then by all means, we want to leverage that knowledge. Yeah.
Excellent. Wincie, thank you very much indeed for the opening keynote.
No worries.